is Thursday. RawMikeRichards.com, broadcasting live from the DKI studios in downtown Toronto. 234 King Street East out of the Pacific Junction Hotel. Coming up today, we're going to talk to our good friend Rod Peterson. Yeah! Talk a little CFL. What's happening in the Riders camp. Should be a very interesting year. And I'll tell you, that window of opportunity to make a CFL roster, you're in camp 5 days and they start talking about like your first preseason game. And if they don't see a lot of you and you're trying to catch on, see ya. Like literally you can be there, Dave, I would say 7 days and come out without a job and have nothing.
That easy, I know.
It's really tough. I remember hanging around Jim Barker, and we'd go out to the U of T campus out in Mississauga.
Yep.
And looking at some of the prospects, and we'd be talking about them. They'd be running around the gym, going through like OTAs and stuff. And I'd say, gee, what happened to Russell Graham? He goes, oh yeah, that didn't work out. He's gone home. but I saw him eating pancakes yesterday. Yeah. Well, I hope he took a lot of pancakes with him because he's not here anymore. Like I'm telling you, it is tough.
Chris Jones, when he was the defensive coordinator of the Argos, he used to have this saying back in the day that it's a good way of getting dinner on a Delta. And I was like, what the hell does he mean, dinner on a Delta?
That is
awesome.
awesome.
And he's like, well, you're no longer in camp. You're on a Delta, and you get dinner on your way home. And I'm like, okay, dinner on a Delta.
That is awesome. Chris Jones. I mean, he's full on Tennessee. He is full on Tennessee. And he's got a pretty good team this year as well. So we'll talk about that. Looking forward to talking to Rod Peterson in what is going to be. And again, I've said it beforehand. Not only do I think it's going to be a competitive year in the CFL. I mean, we'll see what Montreal does, but I'm not crying. But I think for the most part, this there's a lot of eyeballs on it. And before people start shitting their pants, it's not all because Johnny Manziel. Not all of it. But I don't know if ESPN necessarily is that interested in the league where they're going to have 68 games of playoffs and the championship. Do they need programming? Yeah, they all do. That's why they joke about the Ocho and the 4 or 5 channels that every sports outlet, if they have television, has it. That's why you see the weird spelling bee. I mean, why do you think they have the Tour de France on for so long? And it sucks. It's a bicycle race. Bikes are for the poor, for transportation, to pick up their bread and pigs. I don't like cyclists on the road. I don't like bike lanes. I just don't like bicycles. Get off. Get out. And if you're one of those clowns who wears the gear like you're in the Tour de France and you're just going down, like in your hometown of Elm Street, you deserve to be made fun of. I have, just so you know, put the window down with one of these guys who clearly wasn't in the right shape to be in the Tour de France. And I said, what place are you in? Fuck off. You're getting it, pal. Do you think that looks good, by the way? The bike shorts with the banana hammock thing out the front, and you better be ripped if you're wearing one of those jerseys, because those guys probably all weigh about 158 pounds. Yeah, so if you're not 158 pounds and maybe like you don't know Lance Armstrong or rode with him at some point, don't wear the gear. Because you're all annoying.
There's a lot of losers like that, too.
Okay, do you watch Family Guy?
Yeah,
okay.
All the time.
Okay, how they have short little promos sometimes on the channels that they're on. This was the best. So Brian I think it's Brian.
Yeah, Brian the dog.
Is driving the car, and Peter's in the gear.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Brian. I'm sorry. I am that guy. I'm like, God, that show is so bang on. I'm sorry, Brian. I am that guy.
It's so smart. It's so clever.
Oh, the little cutaways?
Yes. Yeah.
And that's why I think it's so weird in this politically correct world that they're just not. They don't care. They'll say whatever. Every stereotype. Well, when you say, and Asian reporter, I mean, they're really not hiding anything. Love that show. Also today, we're going to take a look at some interesting clips. There was a time, and people, I know Russell wouldn't even probably have heard of this. But for CFL fans, there is always this, and I know it's in all CFL fans, that they have something deep down that they're jealous of the NFL. Like there's the NFL almost hatred openly by some. Now, Dave and I are both football fans of all kinds, so we really don't get into those kinds of arguments. But my dad used to tell me about in the 60s how the CFL and NFL teams would actually play each other. And that's a fantasy for a lot of, but do you really want to do that now? Like, seriously do? Now, back in the 60s, guys were going in both leagues. The reason? Money was, I think at times, depending on who you were playing for, the money might have been even, not only even, but maybe even better in the CFL. Because professional sport in that day was not the Lord and God that it is and perceived now. College football, way bigger. University athletics was always what your family tree was the most proud of. If Russell makes University of Mississippi, he goes in Ole Miss, the reason he went there is because his dad, his grandfather, his great-grandfather, and maybe one of them won the conference championship, and that goes up on the wall, and you are a legend forever in that family. The moment you said, by the way, I'm going to play with the New York Jets, or I'm going to play with whichever giant team in its inception, you're like, oh yeah. Is it a paying job, or you got a job, or like that's what it was like in the 60s. It wasn't like, oh my God, professional football. It was like pro football. Okay. There was a little bit of mystery to it because it wasn't the home run. The home run was playing for Notre Dame. The home run was being captain at Penn State. That's what it was. So in the 60s, the CFL and the NFL played each other. The teams played each other. Now this is courtesy of CBC. You're going to hear the voice of Elliot Friedman does an excellent job. This is very short. But get a load of those that would like to see what happened. CFL versus NFL, head-to-head for real.
This was 1960. The Argonauts in the dark jerseys are playing the Pittsburgh Steelers at C&E Stadium, but weren't successful. Quarterback Bobby Lane and crew beat Toronto lopsidedly, 43-16. The year before, they'd also taken on the Chicago Cardinals in the first game at C&E Stadium. That was also a loss, 55-26. But where Toronto was a disappointment, their provincial rivals from Hamilton were a hit. The Tiger Cats beat the Buffalo Bills 38-21 in 1961, a little payback for the CFL.
Isn't that something? That to me is just amazing. Can you imagine? So
never happen again.
No, and never. That's why when we start talking about the championship,
which sucks because I'd like to see it.
That's what I'm saying. It exists in every CFL fan. It's like, well, I don't think we want to be playing the Pittsburgh Steelers now, and then your mind wanders, right? And then all of a sudden
completely.
You see it. It's why I think for a lot of CFL fans that with the new stadiums, your mind does tend to wander a little bit because the stadiums that are being built now, Winnipeg Stadium is like, I just got to go.
Yep.
Mosaic, we've shown a bunch of clips from Mosaic. I've got some more of it. Once again, Rod Peterson, he's been the voice, for over 20 years?
This is his 20th season with the Riders in the CFL. He's a legend, very well known throughout the league, not only just Western Canada. And you know what? He basically does it all. Has his own media company, his own restaurant.
He's got his own restaurant?
Yeah.
Oh, we're totally hitting that.
Life's pretty good.
Better not be a bill at the end of it. That's all I'm saying. And Dave, that's for you.
That's absolutely for me.
I want the Bastel program. I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with that.
I never want to see a bill.
Yeah. It's the opposite of Johnny Football doing this. It's like hands behind the back.
Yeah, it's alligator arms.
Yeah.
I can't reach the bill. I can't.
Well, last night, I don't know what's going on in Vegas before those games, but they got to knock this off. They got to stop it. Like, if you want to come out and have the little sword fight, but then you had violins, and then the stuff that's supposed to happen, like overhead with ice cracking or something.
Yeah.
It's just, look, if you're going to have guys, and it sounds sword fighting, who wants to see the other game anyway? But if you're going to have that, like, seriously, at least give them some sense of skating ability.
Bingo.
Like
nobody skates in Vegas, I don't think.
No. They here comes the Golden Knight. I'm like, the Golden Knight couldn't even make like a PB team.
League.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't know, just too much. And it takes so long. If I'm the Capitals, I am going to parody that the next game. Have some fat guy come out like with the mesh. You remember the mesh, like the Condredge Holloway football jerseys?
Crop top too.
Crop top. Oh, full on.
Scott Ferguson used to wear those.
I know he did. Fergie. have him smoking with like a baseball bat or a toilet paper roll. I would completely mock what they do, because you know what? When you take 15 minutes to start the game, 20 minutes, and then you lose,
yeah, I know.
Now you're open to shit. That's all I'm saying. Let's take a look last night once again, courtesy of the NHL. This was a much tighter game. No scoring in the third period, but Ovechkin and the Capitals and that paddle save by Holtby. That is why it is tied at 1 game apiece. Once again, property of the National Hockey League.
Backstrom down the boards. Oshie in the slot. Ovechkin on the other side. Eller playing for Kuznetsov. Backstrom again. Closes in. Eller to Ovechkin. Scores! Ovechkin has arrived in the Stanley Cup final, and the Washington Capitals have a 2-1 lead.
See what he did? Oh, Ovechkin. See what he did there, Dave? That's good.
It's clever.
Next time you do archery, steal it. Oh, Samanikanov.
You got to get that.
Yeah.
A little late with the stick. Burakovsky with a nice play on the boards. Eller. Connolly drives to the front of the net. Eller hits the trailer. The shot hits the post, and it's in.
See, that was the killer. That goal right there.
Have taken the lead 3-1. And here you got a defense pinching.
Like that slight deflection off the inside of the post.
The defense jumping back in. How many bodies does that hit? Looked like it hit off Connolly.
It did.
And then off the post and in. Lars Eller. And a goal and an assist. Turns. Why not give it to Orpik? He scored. Takes another shot, and that's stopped by goaltender Marc-Andre Fleury. Here, side of the net. One quick pass from Tuck to the front of the net, and that was held into the line by Theodore, just about exited. Here's Shea Theodore again. Now he takes a shot. He scores! So many times this
screen,
season,
and that is as close as Vegas would get in terms of the scoreboard. I didn't have the big save, the paddle save going, because that's why they're going back tied at 2, because that's a goal.
Yeah,
that is a goal. So Holtby, they steal that one game. That's kind of what the plan was. I mean, that's what the plan always is if you're the visiting team. So what are you saying? You've got the save?
Let's do it.
Oh wow! Look at you, Russell.
Shea Theodore to center. Dump the puck in. A crazy bounce right to the front of the net. Tuck stopped by Holtby. Look at the power that he has.
Unbelievable.
To hold it back and then get it underneath his glove. What a game-saving save that is by number 7.
Look at this view.
This is as good as it gets. Ball passes back the shot.
There it is. That's why you're
unbelievable.
Going back. Isn't that great?
Yeah, right there
Right there.
is Braden Holtby's signature save of his entire career.
Yeah, I agree.
If the Capitals win the Stanley Cup.
But even still,
even if it isn't, I know, but I just don't want to say. I don't want to say career just in case the other team from Vegas decides to win the next 3, and then it's like, damn it.
I still think this is 7 games.
I'm
sticking with 7 games.
I think it's going at least 6 or 7, and I think we have a clear-cut indication of Vegas wins it, Marc-Andre Fleury, Conn Smythe. Capitals win it, Braden Holtby, Conn Smythe. It's a goaltenders matchup right now.
Yeah, and not surprisingly, I mean, there are times if you're going that far, it's usually weighed quite a bit on who you have between the pipes these days.
Yep.
But this is a good series, Dave. Like, there are some times, and let's be honest, as much as you can be a hockey fan, there are times where you're like, either your team gets knocked out, and I'll be honest, those years where New Jersey was winning cups, that's when I faded. In Canada in June, where the sun comes out, and you're going to make me watch
New Jersey
that clutch and grab the neutral zone stuff, the traps. I was not watching it.
By the way, Marc-Andre Fleury, game 1, save percentage .857, and game number 2, save percentage .885. Where the hell was that last series?
Yeah, I was waiting for it because I knew that it was coming.
885. Damn it.
Okay. You're watching RawMikeRichards.com. Either on the website, of course, or on the dedicated YouTube channel. We appreciate it wherever I think it's here. It's this, no, it's this one. It's this one right there. And so just click on my head, and hit subscribe. Or
do it.
And you're doing it.
Go to the website too, ronmkerichards.com, and subscribe there too. Not only do we have promotions like the NHL draft stuff, which is super popular. Like we have 1 million entries, and it's coming down to the wire. Giveaways from Blade Tape. We're going to be giving away more stuff throughout the summer.
Yeah.
And you know what? We might even be working on something for NFL season, maybe a little bit of CFL once in a while here and there. We can't do a full season of CFL, but you never know what you're going to get. And you don't get spammed. You don't get like daily emails like you do with some of this other garbage that I have to subscribe to for my fantasy stuff and my other sites that I subscribe to. So it's customer friendly.
Yeah. And we'll probably do something with Sports Interaction, one of our gaming sponsor. They're awesome. And I'm sure Steve Rapp always has some stuff.
That's right.
Phil Gray's going to work on some stuff. So, as the NFL season gets closer, you know that we're going to be very busy this year on that because we appreciate it. And they've been great sponsors for us, and they'll do well as we continue to get bigger and spread our wings. And I said wings. Speaking of weirdness, you mentioned before, so the Brian Colangelo thing.
This is really weird.
Like it is.
Really weird.
This verges on like creepy, almost dual personality. Now, I'm sure I know we've talked to him. He's been on our show when he was here in Toronto. He has been like executive of the year in the NBA. He has always been a very respected man. I mean, you see what's happening in Philadelphia, the 76ers, with the team they put together finally after all these years, all these top draft choices. If you haven't heard the story, courtesy of our friends at CBC, because it's visual and there's a voiceover to it instead of explaining it, here's what we're talking about that has made the news and made you just sort of shake your head and say, what?
Now the pop culture website The Ringer alleges Colangelo used anonymous Twitter accounts to lash out at his critics while potentially revealing private information. It started with a tip saying Colangelo had 5 Twitter accounts. One was silent, but the others often loud and combative, criticizing the last Philly GM, going after current Toronto GM Masai Ujiri, and even suggesting a player failed a physical.
The implication of the information that's anonymously put out through these accounts makes specific reference to players, to trades, to health and privacy issues.
So how did all of this come to light? The Ringer did more digging on the tip, then came forward to the Sixers about 2 of the accounts, but within hours, the other 3 accounts went private, and that raised suspicion. Colangelo acknowledges using only 1 account, the silent one that didn't tweet. The Sixers now investigating, but as this sports and entertainment lawyer told CBC Toronto, the damage is all about trust.
Well, it is also, it questions your personal sense of balance. If you're going to hire this guy as your general manager or head of operations, where you're using burner accounts, if you want to call it like that, and for reason of criticizing other GMs in public, like it really is a question, Dave, almost of as I would say, mental stability. What do you think of this story? Because to me, I never would have thought he
out of old people, yeah,
because it's so small.
And of course, he hasn't been proven guilty yet.
Right.
This is all speculation, but man, where there's smoke, there's fire. It almost sounds like the potential of, if it wasn't him, maybe it was someone close to him that was doing it. Was there people working in cahoots with each other to do it on behalf of him? Like, does a general manager and a vice president of an organization have time to run 5 Twitter accounts to make fun of other teams, players, strategies, critiques? I don't get it.
To me, it's fireable.
Yeah,
like
it's very fireable. And you know what? Terrible timing for the Philadelphia 76ers. This is probably their biggest offseason in about 30 years, considering the free agents that are out there. And the gaming and offshore gamings right now had the Philadelphia 76ers as favorites to get LeBron James. It surpassed the Lakers. Does this happen now? Does LeBron want to go into that situation?
I think if Brian Colangelo's at the helm, so to speak, that this is a problem.
This is a major
problem.
problem.
For him, there's no way that LeBron and his people aren't going to ask that as their number one question.
Yeah.
So is Captain Crazy running the team? Like, has he said things about me under
seriously? Yes, exactly.
Obi-Wan Kenobi 6'5" said that I was slow and that I don't play defense. Like, I don't know.
Well,
but like other GMs, including Masai Ujiri.
I know.
I
apparently his friend.
Yeah. Well, we know who else uses fake accounts and says stuff. People that he works with.
I was gonna say that there are people that probably sit there and say, you know what Mike and Dave say when they're off camera.
Austin Matthews 69. Yeah. We know who that is. Not funny impressions. Austin Matthews 69.
Can't believe he likes that team from the Prairie Province. Austin Matthews 69.
Before we get to Rod Peterson at the bottom of the hour, I keep saying bottom of the hour in about 5 minutes or so. There are certain shows that I think in North America we understand. When you go overseas, sometimes the translation's lost a little bit. Now, you know how many Japanese game shows and stuff that people watch now? We played, what's it called? Slippery Steps. Remember that? They take steps and then freeze it, ice it, and then make people go up it? Like, how is that a show? But over there it is. I've never quite understood Italian television. But why do I need to? So I'm hoping, if you're watching this today, Coach Frank, Tony Lucisano, Bruno, any of these guys, maybe you could tell me what they're saying, because I guess the reality is in Italian television, this is the brilliance of it, you don't have to know. This is why mi piace television italiano.
Vero? Ah, ecco, dai. Altre cose che non
Okay, a little odd, but she's smoking hot, right? Look at that. 8 out of 10.
9.3.
Yeah. And then look what they do.
Decimal odds.
Then they make her giant in front of the and look at this guy coming in with the Groucho Marx nose and like molesting her.
Hey,
then
Tony,
she gets out of the thing. Then
Tony,
she goes up. And they're always old guys too. The hosts of these shows are always like really, really old.
Who would have thought?
I don't know. I give this show, however, a 10. Weird, but so awesome and so Italian.
It's probably a ton of them too.
Bravo. Oh, the one I used to laugh at all the time is they had these super girls like that, but super young.
Yeah.
Like really, really, really super young. Who were they entertaining for? Because they were lip syncing and doing these moves with these little outfits. Who are they entertaining? Sailors.
Were they really?
Like, if you tried to pull that shit now, can you imagine North America? So what's the show, JB? Well, we get these girls around, I don't know, let's say 15. Right? And they're going to be in little outfits, and they're going to sing along, and everyone's going to sing in the audience. Correct. And the audience is Marines. Right? There's no way you're pulling this shit off. In Hollywood? Left Hollywood? Oh, my God. Congratulations, Italy. You are the best. Just before we get to Rod Peterson, things that are happening in their camp. Of course, preseason game last week against the Edmonton Eskimos.
Yeah, so, it was the earliest preseason game in the history of the CFL.
Like it was.
Yeah, and they had 28,000 fans.
Yeah.
I guess they're not ready for football, right?
No, I mean, you know what? Go, absolutely. Congratulations. For Edmonton, that they get.
Yeah.
Truly, they do get that. So looking at the exhibition game, so the first string are those that were mostly starters. They were a portion of that first quarter, going into the second quarter for the Eskimos. So I think his name is David Watford. I'll have to take a look at their roster, but is it David? Let me just check here.
You're talking about the quarterback, right?
Yeah, he out of the cut of the Philadelphia Eagles. He played the entire first half. Mm-hmm. He was, it is David Watford. 8 of 17 for 87 yards. He was picked once. They also had a couple of field goals, but he had mostly starters to go against. So, as they say, more daunting challenge in terms of what the other guys saw. But you go so quickly in the CFL. What do we take from that? So we're going to talk to Rod about that in a moment. But here's just a little bit of his work, and I got to be honest, he looked pretty good. Does he land with the team? Because they got obviously Zach Collaros and Brandon Bridge, the Canadian.
Yes,
he's slotted in at number 2 right now. So does this guy stay with the team? Here's some of his work, courtesy of the CFL and broadcasters TSN.
Again, Watford The former Philadelphia Eagle swinging it out to Thigpen. Thigpen has room now, sideline, and Marcus Thigpen knocked out of bounds. Second down and 10 from the Edmonton 22. Watford feels the heat and then zips one in. Brett Loeffler, the former St. Mary's Husky, puts it through, and Saskatchewan is on the board. In October and in November, he was leading the Saskatchewan Roughriders.
Hello.
Hey, Rod, it's Mike Richards from RawMikeRichards.com.
How's she going, brother?
Fantastic. Just so you know, we're live on air. That's how we do it. So if you want to say something bad about your coworkers, just know they're probably going to hear it, or maybe they already know. I mean, 20 years.
I was waiting.
We just played a clip of the preseason game. Take from it what you will. I mean, the coach is trying to see what they're going to see. We just saw some work of David Watford. He did see a lot of the Edmonton starters in that first quarter, and there were times where I thought he looked pretty good, but he hasn't played in a while. This is a guy that was a cut of the Eagles, and I'm just curious, does he have a chance to catch on with the team? What do they make of him?
Oh, yeah. Well, good morning, guys, by the way. Can I start there?
Yeah, you can. We normally say good morning, but we just bypassed that right to the meat.
Mike wanted to get right into it, Rod. He's been CFLing it up for the last 4 weeks in here.
Oh, yeah.
He's been in training camp for the last 2 months.
Yes.
Okay, good. Well, he's 4 months behind Saskatchewan then. But anyways, Watford, does he have a chance? I would almost suggest he's already made the team, because going into that game, he was only supposed to play a quarter, and whether it was Jones or the offensive coordinator, Stephen McAdoo, they made the decision to keep him in for the whole half. They wanted him, Mike, to be successful, right? And those early series, if you watch the game, he had some drops. There were some bad penalties that killed drives. They put David Watford in every situation to be successful. And you mentioned that he was with the Eagles for 2 years. He was a receiver there, but he's a quarterback by trade at Hampton. So he was just excited to be behind center and have the opportunity to play quarterback again. Now, Marquise Williams, who played in the third quarter, who we tabbed as the next one, and we all thought that he would be in Saskatchewan, he gets out there with a second and third group offensive line, gets killed twice on sacks, and gets cut the next day. So he broke all of Darian Durant's records at North Carolina, and he lit up the preseason last year. We're talking about Marquise Williams.
Yep.
So I'm glad that you opened up with the backup quarterbacks. You obviously have a pulse of what's going on here in Saskatchewan, because who's going to be the third-string quarterback is like the number 2 topic of what's going on here right now, only in Saskatchewan.
Right. Well, look, we've been playing a lot of the commentary south of the border surrounding Johnny Manziel. Never, ever did I think I would watch an NFL live show, an ESPN show on the NFL, a Fox show on the NFL, and them talking about the depth chart for the Hamilton Tiger Cats as they're going through camp. Well, I mean, what world am I in? Someone said, "Oh, it makes me sick. This hype it's too much." I'm seriously. I mean, ESPN's going to broadcast 68 games plus the playoffs plus the Grey Cup. I mean, to me, I'm not hating it. I don't think the league's hating it necessarily.
No, not at all. And I hope your listeners aren't tired of Johnny Manziel talk. But I will tell you a little funny story. I was going to climb Camelback Mountain in Scottsdale on New Year's Day, and my driver to the mountain there in Phoenix said, we are talking, he found out that I work in the CFL. He goes, the CFL? Johnny Manziel's going up there. Hamilton's got his rights. And I said, yep. And he goes, this is his last chance. This is it. This is it. If he screws this up, he's done. And I said, yeah, well, people like me and Johnny get a lot of last chances, And so if you know what I mean, and I don't want to talk about Johnny, but he and I have had similar issues in our lives. We do get a lot of last chances, but people root for your comeback. Mm-hmm. I'm rooting for Johnny's comeback. America, he's one of those polarizing guys. You love him or you hate him, but they're all going to be watching, and that's the best news for our league.
Yeah, it certainly is, Rod. Rod, so great to talk to you this morning. Thanks for doing this in conversation with Rod Peterson, the voice of the Saskatchewan Roughriders, entering year number 20. That's crazy for me to even comprehend that, being a Prairie boy myself and obviously a Bomber guy, but the Roughriders have always been that number one rival, especially where the two cities are geographically located. You've been at this for 20 years. Does it seem like 20 years, Rod?
No, not at all. And to be honest, I was a hockey guy getting into the league, so the first few years were a blur. But what I love, David, is that I've had a front row seat for all the ups and downs again and ups of this storied franchise. I've been there, never missed a snap for the last 20 years. That's a very fortunate position for me to be in with a tremendous football team. It's really gone by in a blink.
Well, I got to be like this week, as I said, as I've been ramping up to the CFL, I played a bunch of clips that guys have made from their own cameras, like the footage of Mosaic, and it really. And I said, in my world, I'd fantasize as a kid what certain stadiums would look like in the CFL. That was kind of one of those images, but you never really think that it's going to be that kind of reality. As you get older, you start to understand cost, you start to understand demand, popularity, and then there it is, sitting there. The return game on Labor Day, and I have to think that it's a shrine. And you know what? For a football crowd or an audience that have treated that football team like a religion for all those years, it seems to me like almost a reward for those people that would come from all the different parts of the province and other provinces to watch games.
Well, Mike, you've spent enough time on the prairies yourself, and you have a ton of fans in that southwestern, western Saskatchewan area because they listen to you all the time, right? You know what our fans are about. So last year in the new stadium, like they're saying, "Oh, we don't deserve this. We're not worthy of this." And you sit in that stadium and you don't think you're in Regina, and that's not a shot at my beloved hometown. You just can't believe where you are, and it's got a lot of the feels, as they say in the stadium business, of MetLife Stadium in New York or AT&T Stadium in Dallas. That's the kind of facility we have. And the hilarious thing is Calgary, your old home, they're just dying with McMahon Stadium.
Oh, yeah.
And my friends that work with the Stampeders, I do actually have some friends with the Stampeders, and they say, how did you get this thing built for 10 days a year? That's it.
Yeah.
That's all it's used, really. And I said, because it's Canada's team, baby. And when the government, and then it went, if it had to have gone to a plebiscite, they would have voted in favor of it. They didn't have to, because the whole province was in favor of building this Taj Mahal. The new commissioner, Randy Ambrosi, calls it a cathedral, whatever you want to call it. It's every day when we walk into it, you can't believe you've got it and it's ours.
Let's go back to the quarterback situation and let's talk starter, because there's a lot of different websites, including the CFL.ca, that are already talking about, early season awards and maybe predictions on comeback player of the year. And the name Zach Collaros comes up, considering what he looked like in Toronto, what he looked like that first year in Hamilton, and last year obviously injured and never got, enough playing time and so forth. What has his camp looked like through the first couple of weeks, and what are expectations on a guy that, the Rough Riders are paying some pretty good cash to be that number one and to take them to where they were not too long ago?
Well, he's gotten better every day, which is his goal. We're into week 2 of training camp now, and he had a really sharp day yesterday. Chris Jones was very happy with the overall play of the team. It took Zach a while to settle in a little bit. New team, new playbook. He was never bad, but he had the odd bad throw last week. He's dialing it up now, dialing it in. He doesn't miss screens and bubbles. He makes those easy passes easy, and he's accurate downfield. The thing that I love about him is he's very, very mature, and he's incredibly focused. You can tell he's simmering underneath with some sort of chip on his shoulder, whether it's what went down in Hamilton, whether it's he's been rated anywhere between 7th and 9th best starting quarterbacks in the CFL, whatever it is, He's got a chip on his shoulder. He wants to go out and prove it, and that's probably why he's leading these polls to be the comeback player of the year. He's got some emotional and physical baggage to deal with, and the only way to do it is by getting on the field and winning. So when you got a veteran team that's expected to contend, training camp is even more arduous because it's like we know who's going to be playing where. Let's just get to the regular season and get this thing going.
Well, Rod, talk a little bit about that baggage. Like, I mean, I know a lot about Zach only because I watched him play in college when he was in Cincinnati. Brian Kelly was the coach with the Bearcats at that point, and Tony Pike was kind of the starter. And Zach kind of fought his way through that, and that, of course, in the NCAA, that's where Brian gets a chance to go to Notre Dame. So you know how it works in college. Before your biggest game, before the bowl game, you probably went to those kids' houses to recruit them. Before your biggest game of the year, the coach leaves. Like, it's a difficult situation. So I think that Zach has been used to kind of maybe a little disappointment in his own life, and of course he had to be just devastated what happened in Hamilton necessarily. But is that the emotional baggage you're talking about being the guy and all of a sudden you're not the guy?
Well, the fans here just wonder how at 29 some people thought he was washed up in Hamilton, and he was benched after an 0-8 start last year. People are just wondering why. Why did this happen? Why did he fall out of favor in Hamilton? And I've talked to the Ticats people, and the relationship between Ken Austin and Zach pretty much became untenable. And isn't it ironic that here we are in 2018, and they're both gone from Hamilton?
Yeah.
So I think there was some hard feelings towards Hamilton. He won't admit to that, but you can just, when you're standing beside him and looking in his eyes, those will be some special games against the Ticats this year. That's a little bit of baggage. That's the emotional side of it. And the physical side of it is he was having an MVP season in 2015. He was on pace to be the MVP of the league and lead the team back to the Grey Cup for a second consecutive year when he tears his knee up on a seemingly harmless play. And it took, I think, a long time for him to get over that physically. And now he doesn't like to even talk about it. And at our Florida minicamp, I asked him, and that will be the last time I will ask him about his knee because he doesn't want to talk about it at all. And he's kind of easy to read what his emotions are. He doesn't want to look behind, guys. He wants to look ahead. And that's nothing but good news for the Rough Riders. And the only other thing is people here can't get over how young he looks because it seems like Zach Collaros has been around forever. He's only 29 years of age. His best football, Chris Jones feels, is ahead of him.
Yeah, very well could be. That back, I guess I'm not going to say running back by committee, but it looks like Jerome Messon is going to be the guy. But you have a couple interesting stories in Trey Mason and Zach Stacy, two NFLers, two Rams. One was retired, comes back. What does that look like, and how is that going to shape up? Considering that you like the idea of having the national player in there, are they going to keep both international players, both former NFLers, or how is that backfield going to shape up when everything's said and done in the next couple weeks?
I'm very impressed with the prep you've done on our roster going into this interview. That's the first thing.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Two, I was up in beautiful Prince Albert, Saskatchewan yesterday speaking at a Special Olympics breakfast, and the first question that came out of the crowd in the Q&A was, who's going to be our running back? And I said, I don't know, but let me ask, and I'll get back to you. So I come down here to Saskatoon to training camp. I said to the running backs coach, okay, I got this question from PA. Who's our running back going to be? And he goes, damn, I wish I knew. But that's what training camp's for, right? So if Marcus Thigpen, who did electric things in the National Football League and the CFL before that, if he wasn't facing a 2-game suspension to open this season, I could tell you confidently right now it would be Marcus Thigpen. And once he's served that suspension, it will be Marcus Thigpen. He's been the best training camp running back here by a country mile. Jerome Messam is just wonderful insurance, 6-figure contract, mind you.
Yes.
He can start, 1,000-yard rusher just last year in Calgary. Jerome gives this team a lot of options, not the least of which is being a ratio buster. He looks fine. He hasn't gone full speed in training camp yet. He's 33. He's somewhat saving himself, which is understandable. I don't know how Chris Jones feels about that, but that's what Mess is doing. And then those two Rams, like when I got back here to camp yesterday, I walked up to the field, and all of a sudden, Trey Mason stood out like nobody I've ever seen, I don't think. Like, I was like, whoa, who's this guy? He just had something about him. The long dreads, explosive. They go through these guys a dime a dozen, and just because I saw him one day at training camp doesn't mean he's the next George Reed. But these guys know how to find talent. Let's put it that way. So between Stacey and Mason, that's probably a depth guy right there. And I'm impressed with the humbleness, the humility of guys like that are willing to come to the CFL and potentially even stay on the practice roster for a year just to play ball and follow their dream. Because it's Thigpen and Messam, two vets, two big names in this league that are on top of the depth chart, but those guys are here competing. That impresses me a lot.
Well, and finally, just on the defense side of the ball, I mean, that's what Chris Jones, that's what his resume is. I think when you're born in Tennessee, I think English isn't your first language. I think you talk about blitzes and dogs and cover two. I think that's just how they grow up in that part of the world. Are we going to see a lot of, because it's a lot of high-risk stuff, high-risk, high-reward, a lot of exotic-looking blitzes. Is it going to be that kind of, are those sort of packages that we're going to see from the D in Saskatchewan?
That's what we're seeing in training camp, and that's what I love about Chris Jones. One of the things I love about Chris Jones was the living on the edge, the Don Matthews-style defense, but we haven't seen that the last 2 years in Saskatchewan, and I've said to him, Chris, where's this D that we saw in Edmonton that gave the Riders fits for those 2 years? He's like, I don't have the vets yet. I don't have the guys that I want to run that. That was the last 2 years. This year he does. So they're blitzing from everywhere. They're in the quarterback's face here at training camp. And what the beautiful thing about that is, Mike, is forcing those quarterbacks into quick decisions here and play at their optimum in training camp. Once you get into the games, they should be easy. Like, if you can handle this in practice against your own defense, which could be the best defense in the CFL, it helps both sides of the football. And as far as personnel, let me just throw some names at you. Willie Jefferson, Charleston Hughes, Zach Evans, Ed Gainey. These are CFL perennial all-stars on that side of the football. They're long, lean, they're hungry, they're mean, and they want the province loves them so much. I was just with all those guys at the Saskatchewan Rush game the other night, National Lacrosse League. Mm-hmm. They were held up as absolute heroes. What does that do to the players? They want to return the favor to the fans. So it's been some rough years the last couple of years here, but it's coming together, and I think this is just going to be an unreal season for the Saskatchewan Roughriders and this province, which frankly has had a tough 2018.
Yeah.
So they're going to be relying on the Riders to lift some spirits around here.
Absolutely, Rod. Final question from me. I know it's not fair to ask you this right now because it's May the 31st, but we're friends, so I can ask you. Give me the five in order, the top five teams in the West Division. We know that four of them are going to make the postseason because there will be a crossover, whether the East likes it or not. But give me your top five in order of how the division will fare when everything's said and done in late October.
That's not tough at all. I've actually already done it a month ago.
Oh,
okay.
I've got Saskatchewan 1,
yep.
Shocking.
Of course. Sure.
Edmonton 2, Calgary 3, BC 4.
Whoa! And, no, Rod, come on.
And the Winnipeg Blue Bombers 5th.
Really?
Is that why you just exploded? Because I don't know why they bring me on the radio in Winnipeg to give these predictions every year. I always do. They posted them, I'm told, in their locker room. I'm like, if you guys are worried with the radio guy in Saskatchewan saying you're proving why you're gonna be 5th. So there you go.
Oh, that is awesome. Hey, Rod, so great to catch up with you. I've been saying, not just because of Johnny Manziel, but I just think everyone's going to play more consistent ball this year. I think there is some of those years where it seems like it's in flux. I think this is one where a lot of the teams, they got their feet on the ground. I think you can see better football. I think Hamilton's a huge question mark. I mean, you got Jerry Glanville running that offense who doesn't or a defense who doesn't know what a zone is. I mean, it's man, and they're going to bring the house a lot. Toronto is the ultimate in the The Rodney Dangerfield disrespected. I mean, Grey Cup champions. Nobody talks about them. But they're going to play some solid ball. I think Ottawa's going to be a lot. I don't know about Montreal. Montreal to me is
worst
probably
team in the league.
Is going to be, and for the years that they put beatings on people, I'm not crying. But as a CFL fan, you're always kind of worried financially. You know, it's funny talking to Steve Milton from the Spec. You know, as I was sort of rubbing, the Alouettes' noses into the ground, he said, but like a CFL fan, you kind of got to be careful with that because you can't have them sink too low because financially, it's never great when there's an anvil or an anchor pulling everything else down.
It's the CFL. There's always going to be one. And let's not forget the NHL has those franchises too. It's not just a CFL thing. But I'm with you. I don't expect much out of Montreal. I hope for the best. Thank God they have a rich owner who seems to be able to withstand these losses, but they're not getting better. They're getting worse.
Yeah.
Hey, thankfully, look where you're sitting right now. At least it's not the Argos anymore that are the problem child.
Right.
You know, that situation's been fixed, or it's being fixed. So, hey, life isn't perfect, but we're getting there. And these are great times in the CFL.
I agree 100%. Rod, you take care. I'm sure we'll to catch up with you again soon this summer. Hope to see you, maybe get out there. But it's just been fabulous having you on the show today. I really appreciate it.
We'd love to host you. Thanks for calling, boys.
Thanks, Rod.
Rod Peterson joining us here today. It's always great to catch up with him. He's a really solid guy.
I agree with everything he said until the predictions.
Yeah, I saw your face. Once again, Dave's aware there's cameras, and it's like, what?
It's like, damn, get that camera off me.
But the people in the East are going, are we not playing too? Are we not in the same league?
There is no way the BC Lions don't finish 5th place in that division. That's all I'm saying. And I don't mind the Bombers finishing 4th on the crossover. I would love that. But the BC Lions are the 5th best team in the Western West Division. So. Well,
let's look at those two teams. And again, talking about the explosiveness, and it was a real Jekyll and Hyde season for the Rough Riders. Like you never really quite knew what was going to happen. You mentioned Gainey. Gainey at one point I think caught more balls than some receivers.
A ball hawk.
Like it was like it was ridiculous what he was doing.
It's amazing what that defense is going to look like this year.
So this is courtesy of CKRM. This is September 3rd, the Riders and the Bombers. So once again, you're going to hear the radio broadcast. That's why I think this is cool. I mean, in Saskatchewan, if you've never been to big-time college football, for instance, in the States, if you've never been to Texas, if you've never been to Auburn or Alabama, when you're in Regina, when you're in Saskatchewan, that's kind of what it feels like.
Yep.
I mean, they cover it the way football is supposed to be covered. And here is, again, that question, which Riders team is going to come out this year? Here's what they did when it looked good against the Bombers in beautiful Mosaic.
On first and extra, the Bombers blitz. Kevin, short right side pass cut by Carter. Up inside over the 45 to 50 to the 53. On first down, Glenn drops on play action. Over the middle, David Roosevelt. He's going to score. The President. Touchdown Riders from 53 yards out.
Well, I think this, in a chess game mentality, is a great call. You've been stretching the defense, making them go east-west, and then you get...
There you saw the conga line. They talked about that last year.
They get behind the secondary.
Look at the conga line.
Be because the Winnipeg defense are starting to get used to going east and west. They just did not seem prepared to deal with number 82.
Is that what you're going to see in Saskatchewan this year? The one thing that I know that is consistent with what you'll see with them, now, again, not unlike the States, you want to get there for the beginning. Because the beginning... the entrance of your football team when it starts. How many people say that? Even in Winnipeg, do you have to be there for the start of the game?
No, not really.
Not really, right?
Not really, no.
I'm trying to think of almost any stadium and any team where, like the NFL or like big-time NCAA sport, that you have to be there when the game starts. I know, look, in the NHL, for years, old Chicago Stadium, people said you got to be there for the anthem.
Yep.
Like, don't miss it. Yeah. Now, the new one's pretty good, but it's not as good as it used to be in Chicago Stadium.
No, it's same singer, just different acoustics, different build of the building.
Yeah, because they used to have those the pipe organ, the pipes were insinuated right into they tried to, make it similar, but it's just not quite the same. This is Mosaic. This is at the beginning, this is September. No, this is Labor Day. This is pretty cool. Once again, property of the CFL, broadcasters, TSN, and I think this is someone, who's actually on the field. Cool look. Would you have thought years ago that's the CFL? This is Regina, as Rob Peterson said. Really, seriously, where are you?
Russell jumping up and down.
Is that you, Russ?
Outfit, his tail's going crazy.
So there's Gaynor. And by the way, someone pointed out, they said, I thought it was Bomber fans booing. No, like someone tried to rip Gaynor's head off. People sometimes just aren't big on mascots. Okay, so there's your daytime. There's your daytime entrance. This is pretty cool. This is a night game. This is October the 27th of last year for the CFL. Pretty outstanding stuff. See, to me, I take a look at that and I say, Dave, that's the benchmark for the league. There's really nothing they have done wrong. I mean, that's how you do it. Just before we go, a couple things. In watching some of this, here's a school. I've never heard of it before. It's an exchange student. They're all students that come from a school called Columbia International. It's a Canadian school. If you do more stuff like this, if the CFL starts concentrating on these kinds of clips, quite honestly, that we've been showing on the show, but this is from their school. So they're from Nigeria, Dave. They're from South America. Sure. They come up. They went to their first time ever to see a Canadian Football League game. For some of them, probably the first time they've ever seen football. This is at Tim Hortons. It's the Riders and the Ticats. But the looks on their faces, and to me, just to sell the game, I think this is fantastic.
Today I got free tickets from CIC to come and see the football. I support the Tiger Cats because it's amazing and I'm loving Hamilton so far.
I've never seen a Canadian football game before.
This is my first time watching the game. I'm like super excited and like, oh, yes! I've not actually heard a lot. I've just watched it on TV before and it seems really fun. So I decided to come and watch it. Go Tigers, go! This is the first time I see the live for a match like this and I feel really happy.
I don't know the rules of football. Can you explain me?
So the team has to run 10 yards in order to go and like do a touchdown.
Well, the stadiums in Mexico are bigger than in Canada, but here the atmosphere is pretty similar. It's a good game.
That is awesome stuff. That is awesome stuff. Just shot by an exchange school, in that I've never heard of in Canada. Unbelievable. We're going to leave you here, but we can't leave on a high note. Everything's been so positive, Dave. Even you, I think, have been, aside from a couple of trip-ups.
I didn't like that BC Lions prediction.
No, I know. You're still steaming. I know you're still angry about that.
What a way.
Well, if you really want to be angry, I suppose you...
I like Rod, too.
Yeah, I know. Well, you did. This is a hotel called the Bay Motor Inn or the Baymore. I don't know what it's called. The what? The Baymont? Okay, just so a little bit of a what do you call it, advisory. It's not the swearing. It's just what they're talking about. I've seen bad customer service, but probably not as bad as this. And the room that they're describing, you probably don't want to be in there. It's like one of those Captain Obvious where they go, the room kind of feels all murdery. Yeah, I think that's what they've got in what I'm calling the worst customer service I've probably ever seen.
Hey, it's ants and stuff, insects and stuff all in those rooms.
No, they're not.
No, there's not.
We just complained to you. It's boogers all on the wall.
Oh.
Blood all on the wall. We just complained to you about this.
Ew.
Did we not just complain to you about this? Did we not just complain to you about this?
I'm not even going to discuss with you anything.
What do you mean you're not going to? We are clients. What do you mean? And we're making a complaint.
We just booked a room and we're telling you that there's blood on the wall.
We've been complaining since we got here.
There's blood in the room and you're not doing anything about it.
Chill, babe, chill. We've documented this already. Okay. With the person that was here before you. Okay. So this has been documented. Okay. And you just acknowledged that. So you're acknowledging you just came up to our room and cleaned boogers off our wall, right?
Oh. I don't know whether they were boogers or not. Or I don't even know if
they were boogers.
Oh.
And blood.
Okay.
Right?
Russell.
Is that right?
Boogers or your blood.
But you had to come physically clean that up when it was supposed to be cleaned up before we got there, right?
Okay. But like I said, how do I know that it was there before you got here?
Because
is this customer service though? Really?
Matter of fact, we came and complained before
we just
you even got here.
almost $200 and you're acting
the lady
like
that was
we
here
did
before
something.
you will confirm that.
Really?
Yes,
really?
We asked her about it.
So, are you going to do anything about this, or do we have to go over your head? Because it won't be hard.
Who is your manager? Who is your manager?
We just need to get this situation taken care of right now because
no, I'm not taking care of
you don't exactly, and we understand that. That's why we need to know who your manager is because you're not taking care of it. You're not taking care of it.
Right?
Okay. Who is your manager?
All right. I
what about
what? Exactly. Boogers in the wall.
Become best friends. Yep.
Who's doing that in the hotel room?
Do karate in the garage.
For the front desk, you could tell it wasn't the best of hotels anyway, Mikey. Oh, by the way, this just in.
Yeah.
Scott Mitchell of the Hamilton Ticats joins us in studio tomorrow.
Oh, very nice, Scotty.
So we're CFL West, CFL East. Next week, we're going to go West and East.
Yeah, there we
go.
Yeah.
Fair and fair.
I think his top five will look a little different than Rod's.
Let's get ready to rock.
Rod Peterson, thanks so much for joining us. What an awesome guy. Great show. I am so pumped. And tomorrow night, Friday night, an exhibition game, and you're going to think it was like the Grey Cup the way I'm so pumped up about it. God, I love it. Thanks for joining us. Remember to subscribe. Keep on going. The numbers look great. Thank you.